Eh, I didn't break it this time. I think it's actually working. What do you know? I hope, anyway, because otherwise this is going to be sad. I stop opening things up. It's recording my screen, which is unusual. I usually don't let it do that. But here we are. Sorry. It's time for the retirement party. It's been a lot of fun running the BCM over the course of these many years. Oh, first, sup, Sir Polly, sup, Swift. Can you tell it's been a month since I streamed? I don't know what to fucking say anymore. Anyway, this is kind of a combined effort thing where I'm going to rank every single completion that I've earned this year on a tier list like this, going from S to D, and then there's the bozo pile for games that I did for contests or just for quick points, nothing I really care about or feel indifferent about, really. And then the other half of this is that it's just kind of a celebration. It's the end of an era where I'm no longer running the contest myself. I've passed it on to very capable hands in eohjay and KT Echo, who will be taking over the BCM from here, running it on their own. And I get to take a break finally. It's been 5 fucking years. I'm sick of running it. But I've had a lot of fun. I've met a lot of really cool people out there, like the people I just shouted out. And so I want to give a quick shout out before I start with the rankings to say a couple of people that I've met that I've like become really close friends with because of the contest, because that's mostly what it's about. We're not really in it to participate hard, or at least most of us. It's mostly just about having a good time and being a part of a community that cares about trying to go for actual completions, games that are challenging and rewarding instead of, the quick 1,000 points here, there, everywhere kind of games that are releasing all the time now. So, the people I want to shout out, of course, eohjay and KT Echo, who are taking over. They've been such a help, especially this last year and the year before with eohjay, just completely changing the way things run so that I'm no longer doing all the work manually. It's still a lot of manual work, but it hasn't been nearly as bad as it was in the early years running this, when I was doing literally everything manual and spending 20 hours, if not more, every month just entering bonuses. So this is way easier to manage now, thanks to them. But also, just really cool people that I've met over the course of the years of running this, like Lucas and Luke, both Lukes. Dan the Whale, who was my partner back in the Lovebirds earlier this year. Met him because he joined this year, and he was such a cool dude. It went so well working together as Lovebirds in the bonus. We completed so many games together. He pushed me way harder than I've ever been pushed by a partner before in the bonus. So that was a lot of fun. And, you got MTLD. I met him through this, and I've boosted so many games with him. I've boosted with NBA Kirkland, Matriarch, Freaky RO, TX Mook. So many people. And then, of course, one of my closest friends I've met recently, thanks to the contest just a couple years ago, Swift Superfly. I can't forget to shout him out because we have played so many games together. We even have a dedicated spreadsheet for the games that we've already done as well as the games we plan to do together. So it's like he's become like one of my closest friends on Xbox. But let me put this F category back where it belongs. I fucked this up. I moved it earlier by mistake. There we go. That looks better. And without further ado, I think we can actually get started with the challenge now. And hello, Lucas and KT Echo, and of course Cornelius Wienerbottom, which is eohjay, but he has a very unique name on here. So the first completion we did this year was Borderlands the pre-sequel. And it's an immediately tough one to rank between B and C because I like Borderlands a lot. It's one of my favorite series of all time. But in no doubt, this is the weakest entry in my opinion. I think I'm still gonna go with B just because it is a fun game. It's just it gets boring. Unlike the others, after a little while of playing it, it's kind of a struggle to keep pushing yourself towards the completion. So B for boring. Yeah. F is for friends that do stuff together. That's damn right, Swift. And you better be ready for Lost Planet this year. We're gonna fucking suffer just like we have been with Saints Row 2. Next, Feeding Frenzy 2. Easy D tier. Just kind of a whatever. Not as good as the first one in my opinion. They took a good, fun, like silly arcade premise and like stretched it out a little longer than it needed to be. It's just kind of boring. I also don't think that the changes they made were all that fun. So, D tier. It was quick enough, but it's just not that fun of a game. Dead Effect 2. I'd say that's another B tier, maybe even ahead of Borderlands there. It was a lot of fun. It's an underrated FPS game. It's definitely janky as hell, has really bad voice acting, but it is a very fun game to play. The gameplay, they nailed it. It works really well on controller. The constant upgrading your character, it feels almost like a looter shooter as well. You get constant slight power upgrades, so you're always looking for the next piece of gear. And the first game on the Bozo list is River City Ransom, which was not fun. That was awful, but I'm throwing it in the Bozo list anyway because I only played it for a bonus in the BCM. There was no reason I would have played that outside of that bonus. So, Golf Tee It Up. I'd say that was a solid C tier game. Like, it may be even B tier. It was mostly fun. It's just kind of a short whatever golf game, but it's actually enjoyable. I know Swift can attest to that too. I believe you played this game and you enjoyed it. It's like a non-realistic version of real golf. It's not mini golf, but it's still got like the goofiness that you'd expect out of a mini golf game. So it's not bad. Donut County. Weirdly, this is going to be the first A because it is a really short completion, but it is just such a good game. It's so much fun. It's such a chill, relaxing time. There's no problems with it whatsoever. And if you're just looking for something to do for like a few hours, it's a very good completion to just knock out and enjoy yourself. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Now, this is the first ranking that I think might upset some people because I do not like fighting games at all. And I'm throwing it in the D tier as well. See, I'm glad to see people that are also liking Donut County. Hey, Scar, Ace, how you guys doing? But yeah, Donut County was a great game. That it deserves to be up there in the high rankings. It's a small indie game, but damn it, who cares? Small indie games deserve their shining spots in the light too, and it's definitely more fun than any of the games on this list so far. Outside of like Dead Effect 2 is really fun as well. That deserves to be played. It's just not quite as good as Donut County. Anyway, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I already ranked it, but my reasoning is simply that I don't like fighting games, and of the fighting games I've played, this is one of the less fun games. Like, even my top-rated fighting games would be like Mortal Kombat and Soul Calibur, and I'd probably still stick them in B rank. I'm just not a big fan of the genre. So then when you give me something like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which I just could not get used to, and I sucked at, the only reason I was able to complete it is because most of the achievements in the game were just tied to a multiplayer mode that was dead, and I was able to double box them. Otherwise, that would not have happened. As well as the fact that the arcade mode was the toughest part, but every single team that you had to beat it with had at least one character that you could kind of use a cheese with, which would just make it come down to RNG whether or not it worked out or not. But moving on from that one, we have Feudal Alloy, which is such a disappointment to throw in this D tier as well. It's not a very good Metroidvania, and it feels, it just doesn't feel very good to play. They give you the double jump at like damn near the end of the game, and it should have come way earlier because it made it way less of a hassle to get around and less frustrating. But it's so late that it doesn't really matter by the time you get it. You've already done 90 or like 75% of the game. So it's just kind of a frustrating experience for most of it. And the only saving grace with the game is the fact that it doesn't limit how many healing supplies you can have. So I'd load up on like 99 oil cans once I got the one achievement for having 50,000 credits on me at one time or whatever. I then just bought an ass load of healing items and just kept spamming them in every single fight, so I never had to worry about dying. It's not very fun. The map in the game fucking sucks. They give you a map, but they don't show you on the map anything, even where you are. So it makes it such a pain in the ass to actually like go around and do anything. And I got lucky that I didn't have to do a whole lot of searching. I had found most of the stuff while I was just playing through the game. But it still just was not fun. Now, Recompile is one that got a lot of mixed reception in the Discord. There was a lot of people that really hated it, and I am not one of those people. I had a lot of fun with Recompile. I thought it was a really good game. It's going in the B tier for me. And I know that's blasphemy to some of you guys, but I actually had a great time. There's not much more to say about that game because it's just kind of a simple 3D kind of Metroidvania, more of an action-adventure game because there's not a whole lot of backtracking you do. You can get most things on the first attempt of playing a level, and there's only a couple of that you had to go back for, like, secrets. You don't really have to go back. Yeah, I knew you were one of those people that really hated Recompile. Because it was, you kept telling me, you told me before I played, it's like, it's not worth it. You shouldn't bother. It's leaving Game Pass, just let it leave. And I was like, I'm going to give it a try. I'm so glad I didn't take your opinion to heart because I actually had a really good time with it. And I would even do it again. Like, I would do a stack if it was available. Now, Fallout New Vegas. Where does this go? Ooh. No, hell no. It goes in the S tier. Come on. That's one of the greatest games of all fucking time. It's amazing. I cannot believe I put this game off for so long. I had played like just tiny bits in the past since like 2012 where I had just played like maybe a few hours here or there, but I could never really dive the whole way into it. And then Dan and I talked about it, and it wound up being one of the games that we chose for our Lovebirds month. And so I finally decided to jump in all the way, and it blew me away. It is by far one of the most fun experiences I've ever had, just going through what you would assume is a barren desert, just exploring the map. And yet there was constantly just little things to find in the world that kept you going and made you want to say, what's over there? And go explore for another 8 hours. Just waste your whole day away doing nothing but marking points on the map just to see what's out there. And that's how I spent the entire first day I came back to the game. And I had a blast doing that. And then so from that point on, I just kept playing it, doing all the missions, doing the DLCs, which those are kind of a mixed bag. Some of them are really good. Some of them are not so good. Specifically, I hate Dead Money. Dead Money sucks. But all in all, I'd say that Fallout New Vegas is probably not probably. I did a ranking of like my top 25 games of all time. And Fallout New Vegas was up there in the top 5. It's incredible. Crysis. Kind of a whatever shooter. It's fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I think it's fun, but it's kind of just a little bland, and it's not memorable. Like, I'm struggling to remember a lot of what even the game happened in the game, other than the final boss fucking sucks. And I won't spoil it, but it is just a miserable experience, especially when you're playing on an actual 360, because I ran into an issue where playing it backwards compatible, it would crash half an hour into the game and wipe my save every single time. So I had to play it on a real 360 in order to actually get it working. But I didn't enjoy that one. I did enjoy it for the most part. It was just the bad final boss and the crashing issues. That lowers it down to a C for me. Xenon Valkyrie. Bozo list. Not much to say. I did the cheat code method, so I did it in like 2 hours. So I just feel indifferent about it. Whatever. Loot River, another B tier. I really enjoyed Loot River as well, and Swift is a hater for saying it's not as good as I think it is. I think Loot River is a lot of fun. Ultimately, it's a kind of a Souls-like roguelite with an isometric camera. And for me, isometric Souls-likes are the most enjoyable of them because you can actually see your surroundings. It makes it easier to manage enemies, stuff like that. But then on top of it, Loot River has this unique, almost like Tetris mechanic where you can move the platform you're standing on to get around. And it's just a lot of fun. And you get, it's one of those roguelites where you get like progressive upgrades. So you get currency and you can spend that on weapons that unlock those so that you can fight them in future runs. And runes that like modify the way each run can go. It's just a lot of fun. It's really cool. So I think that Loot River deserves good praise. It's not much. There's not much of a puzzle, dude. He says the puzzle part can kick rocks, but combat is fun. In Loot River, there's barely puzzles to it. It's not much of a puzzle at all. You just kind of slide pieces around, but usually it doesn't take very long to figure those out. Now, for the worst fucking game I've completed this year, and the exclusive F probably, because I don't think anything else is going in F. Fucking Super Time Force. What? I don't want to go too in on this game because ultimately, you know, it's still an indie game, and I don't like shitting all over indie games. But there was just absolutely nothing fun in the game for me. I did not enjoy a minute I played of it. And the fact that I kept forcing myself to continue just because I didn't want to disappoint Dan, even though he told me I didn't have to finish it, I felt compelled to do it for him. And it was awful. Just not fun in the slightest. I'd say it's my second worst completion experience right behind Eat Lead. In just terms of like a game that, even though it was conceptually a good idea, I've struggled to find any fun in it whatsoever, and the frustration outweighed that so much that I just spent the entire 3 days I was playing it completely miserable. Never again. That game was awful. Metro 2033 Redux. I feel like I'm going to load up this B tier, but it's another one. Now, you know what? No. I think at the very least, it's definitely better than both Dead Effect 2 and Borderlands, so I think it's kind of got to slide into A just by that and default. It's good. It's teetering on that B to A range. Yeah, right behind Eat Lead. So when you go to play that game, just be prepared for how awful Super Time Force is. It's like it managed to beat The Messenger in how much it pissed me off, which is saying a lot because The Messenger was the game I originally considered to be my second worst experience. But going back to Metro, this is another one just like Fallout where I had dabbled in it in the past, but I never really sat down and committed to completing it. And so it was a really good experience. It was the final game that me and Dan did together. So another banger coming from Dan's help and forcing me to play games with him. And by forcing, I mean I'm actually the one that selected everything we did. Basically, he just went along with them. Outside of Super Time Force, which, again, he told me I didn't have to do, but I did it. I didn't want to be that guy that did nothing that he was capable of doing or that he had suggested. So, Metro was a lot of fun. It's kind of just I enjoy horror games, and to an extent when you can actually fight back. I don't like those ones like Outlast. But in Metro where you can fight back and you wear like the gas mask and it's in abandoned subways and it's just kind of creepy. You kill like these weird alien monster things. It's just cool. And the story's pretty good. The only downside is that you have to do 2 playthroughs of it because the morality system Well, actually, that's not the reason you have to do two, but you have to do two because there's two different game modes to play through the game in Spartan and Survival, which there's very minor differences. It didn't feel any different playing through both, but I'll say that the worst achievement was the morality system for getting the good ending, because you have to just kind of interact with a bunch of different things, and it's kind of hard to tell if you've gotten enough until the end of the game, where you find out, oops, maybe you didn't have enough. Luckily, I did when I followed the morality wiki, so I didn't have to redo the whole game. But it was a good one. Ghost Song, B tier. The reason I wanted to put it in C tier, but the deal is the music, the environments, the visuals, and the story are all so superb. It's an amazing game to just experience and be there for. It's so much fun just going through and exploring. All of that is done incredibly well. The Metroidvania part of it with the map and the amount of hidden things in the game is fantastic. The negative is the combat, where first of all, difficulty is not balanced well at all. You'll run into one enemy or one boss type that'll be like feel impossible, and then the next 5 bosses you fight, you'll kill them with no struggle whatsoever. I spent 4 hours on the first major boss, just for every other boss in the game to take maybe 1 to maybe 3 tries. Like, it makes no sense. The worst part about that first major boss is that it's the boss that they kind of direct you to go to by telling you to go to the green zone first. And it's like, I get it, because the green zone is what houses the double jump, but getting through that boss as your first boss is miserable. That took me hours, and I wanted to quit the game. But then after that, I had such a great experience with everything else, and I wound up really loving the game, and even I'm thinking about doing it again on PlayStation, just because I did enjoy the game so much. But that's Ghost Song. Next, we're getting into April's stuff with MX versus ATV Supercross, which I would throw in the C tier. It is a perfectly serviceable racing game with some technical issues on Xbox 360, especially in the multiplayer department, where if too many people move at the same time, it crashes everybody's game, which is really dumb, because there's one achievement that we had to organize where nobody else was allowed to move, because you had to win a race against 11 other human opponents in an online race. And we had to organize that so hard, because if one person even slightly tapped the gas, the game would crash. And then you couldn't get the achievement, because at least 1 or 2 people would get kicked out from the crash, and you'd have to start again, because everybody has to be present at the end of the race for the achievement to unlock. That was kind of a nightmare. And then on top of it, it is missing the upgrades that the Xbox One and PS4 version of the game got, with the different game modes that introduce shorter tracks for boosting, where this only has the base Supercross maps. So you wind up having to spend 3 to 4 minutes on a track instead of 30 seconds, which adds up a lot when you're doing the win or play 50 online matches, something like that. It really adds a lot of time, as well as the fact that it's prone to a lot of frame rate drops on 360. Hey Wellington, how you doing, man? Now we got a MX versus ATV All Out, which I'd tempted to throw that in C tier as well. MX versus ATV All Out is kind of just fine. Actually, I would put it ahead of Supercross, at least. It is better, but it's got some other frustrating issues, like, oh my god, getting all the 100 collectibles on all the maps in the free run mode is so frustrating. It took hours to get all of those, because some of them would be put in the most inconvenient spots imaginable. You're curious about the placement of racing games? Yeah, me too. I didn't plan any of these rankings ahead of time, so I'm kind of thinking about it on the fly. But I think that both MX versus ATV games. See, I'm still debating maybe throwing All Out and B tier. Yeah, because it is a noticeable improvement over Supercross, even if it has some frustrating moments. But the actual Supercross racing in All Out sucks. It's just every other event type is fun. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna stick it back in C tier. I'm indecisive on that one. Yo, what's up, fellow CJ? I am also CJ. What's up, man? Glad to see you made it. How you doing? So, next up is what Swift pointed out earlier. This was SpongeBob week. It was a week in the very end of April that I dedicated to trying to complete 5 SpongeBob games within that week. And I managed to do the challenge within 6 days, where I completed all 5 of these SpongeBob games. And only one of them, well, 2 of them were good. And then the other 3 were completely awful. Yeah. Yeah, my unofficial name is the Platty Daddy. Jesus. What's up, Swift? Anyway, Underpants Slam is a total D tier game. It's definitely a D tier, and I think Swift would agree with me there. It's literally like a 5-minute gameplay cycle recycled for like 6 to 8 hours. There's nothing to the game. It's so basic, so barren, so boring. The only reason I was able to get through it so easily and on one evening is because I had podcasts to listen to while I went through this experience. Otherwise, I would have been miserable. So, yeah, that one definitely makes sense. Now, Truth or Squared, on the other hand, solid. B tier, yeah. Definitely more fun than any of these games in the C tier. So yeah, I'll go with B tier. Truth or Squared is actually pretty good. It's more of a traditional 3D platformer that you'd expect from the SpongeBob games. It was the unofficial, like, sequel to Battle for Bikini Bottom, where it wasn't really a sequel, but the gameplay took a lot of what Battle for Bikini Bottom was. And it wasn't as good as Battle for Bikini Bottom, but it at least did enough that it was enjoyable to play through, and it was a trip down memory lane. Hey, glad to hear you're doing good, man. But yeah, the trip down memory lane was the good part about Truth or Square, because you go through like past SpongeBob episodes, a lot of which I recognized because they were the older episodes. They went the whole way back to like the early 2000s episodes. So that was a lot of fun. Now, Plankton's Robotic Revenge. I know I said F tier would be reserved for Super Time Force. I forgot how terrible this game was. It wasn't as frustrating. Like, I would absolutely put like this deserves its own category of like complete and utter trash pile. But this is also pretty trash. SpongeBob's Plankton's Robotic Revenge is a 2-hour game that is incredibly boring, inept, no challenge whatsoever. You couldn't even finish Feudal Alloy? Dude, Feudal Alloy was not a good Metroidvania at all. It was such a disappointment because the art style looked cool. I wanted to like that game so much. And that was such a disappointment when it wound up being completely like just nothing felt good. The controls were so bad, and you don't get the double jump until like 75% of the way through the game. It was not good. But going back to Robotic Revenge, it's such a nothing game, and it forces you to grind for like 10 hours to upgrade every single character to the max, in which a single playthrough doesn't even get you to the max with one character. So you're just grinding for hours upon hours, doing the same 3 levels over and over again, and then restarting that process. It's so boring, and the fact that I actually did it all in one sitting made me just want to do some just drugs. I don't know. It was terrible. Yeah, I'm sorry to break your heart, eohjay, with how bad Feudal Alloy was, but it's just such a disappointing Metroidvania. I love that genre, and it is by far one of the weakest I've played in it. Hero Pants. SpongeBob Hero Pants. Oh boy, another F tier. That was fucking terrible too. It has the same exact issue because it's the same exact developer as Robotic Revenge. So it has the same exact issue, except now the characters are uglier. I do not like the Hero Pants aesthetic to begin with. I just don't. I never liked that. It looks awful to me. And then on top of that, you have the same obnoxious grind, really bad level design, void of any challenge whatsoever, just total boredom. And finally, to end SpongeBob Week, I decided to do a good game, at least so I expected, and I was not disappointed the whole way up to an A tier. The Cosmic Shake is fantastic. It takes everything that made Battle for Bikini Bottom great, because they were the same team that handled the rehydrated version of that, and they evolved it to feel a little more modern, change up the gameplay a little bit. Each level has a unique aesthetic and idea, and it's just a total blast to play through. If you're a fan of SpongeBob at all, I highly recommend checking out Cosmic Shake. It is totally worth playing. Oh, Jesus, a lot of talking. Dead Rising 2 Case West, specifically Case West. And it's just whatever. It's fine. It's a really short, just pre-story to like... Is it a... I think it's... No, it's not the prequel. It's the epilogue. Yeah, it's what goes in between Dead Rising 2 and Dead Rising 2 Off the Record. It's such a mess with that game because there's like 3 different Dead Rising 2s. Case 0 takes place before Dead Rising 2. Then Case West takes place before Off the Record. So, it's fine. It's a, 2-hour game. And you do a couple of things like you'd expect in Dead Rising 2, where you have to go through and do a playthrough where you save everybody. Do a playthrough where you craft every single combo item and grab all the collectibles. So, it is what it is. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. If you don't like SpongeBob, I don't know what the fuck going on with you. I can't trust you if you don't like SpongeBob. Like, be for real. Now, Dark. This is a game that's infamous for being really bad and buggy and awful, and I don't mind it. I think people really harp on the game way more than it deserves. It's a perfectly fine, a little bit buggy, but serviceable stealth game with some interesting ideas, a stupid story that can almost be laughed at because it takes itself too seriously, but in a kind of funny way where you just... And the whole vampire thing is just kind of fun to begin with. Like going up behind somebody and biting their neck to assassinate them instead of your typical just stab them. That's just fun. I think it is a perfectly okay game. Yeah, mid. That is a great description. It's right in the middle, even though that's not what mid actually means apparently. But you know what? Fuck it. It's still, I think C tier is perfectly fine for it. Velvet Assassin. I would throw that in the D tier, but over all of these, so maybe, you know what? No, C tier. It's not as fun as Dark was. It's another survival or a stealth game just like Dark, but I didn't have as good of a time with it, and I think that mostly comes down to the fact that the achievement experience sucks because there's so many fucking collectibles, and so you're just constantly pausing the game every 2 seconds to look at the next collectible, ruining the pacing of the game whatsoever. Not to mention, it's just not all that interesting. It's really dark. The story is just kind of whatever. It is apparently based off of a true story. So I don't know the story behind that. I didn't bother to look it up, but I do remember it saying that. So that was cool. But yeah, just whatever game. Escape from Tethys. C tier. It is again another one of those games that I would consider a perfectly okay Metroidvania. Like it's definitely better than Feudal Alloy because there's nothing inherently wrong with it outside of the early hours are kind of frustrating before you get used to everything and get enough abilities. But once you kind of learn the game and you get all the abilities you need, it's not that bad. It's fine. The map design is okay. So everything's just kind of all right with the game. There's nothing fundamentally wrong. The speedrun is very easy to do. Like you can do it with tons of time to spare, if I remember correctly. So ultimately, I'd say that it's worth doing if you're a fan of the genre and you've run out of other stuff to do, but I wouldn't like run out to go play that game if you have better games left in the genre to touch. Like Ghost Song right up here is also a Metroidvania, and that's definitely up the next tier above. So if you're going to play one and you haven't played either, play Ghost Song. Minecraft Dungeons. I'm really loading up the C tier here. It's just kind of boring, but it's also kind of good. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier because it's like, it's fine. It's a boring game because it's repetitive and really simple, but at the same time there's sort of something addicting about the game, and I think it's just the whole gear system, just like you would get addicted with like Diablo or something, where you're just constantly getting slight incremental increases to your power that keeps you wanting to keep getting more powerful, keep upgrading, keep doing this, that, the other thing, you know, your weekly towers or whatever, so that you can constantly get a little bit better loot. But it goes on for a really long time because of all the DLC and title updates pack on a huge amount of time. Like, it went from being a 15 to 20 hour base game to like 90 hours to complete the whole thing, which that was a bit absurd. That being said, I still had a good time for the most part, and it's a really good like background game if you're going to listen to music or podcasts, which is how I got through the whole thing. I fell so far behind on podcasts, I was able to just binge those while completing Minecraft Dungeons. So, it's alright. And another C tier, Infernax. I didn't care for this one as much as a lot of other people in the Metroidvania fandom, I guess. I don't know what you would call that. But, it's just... One, I think a lot of people have nostalgia for Infernax just because of its art design. It reminiscent of a lot of earlier, or I guess later NES and SNES games. People really like that art style, and that's never been an art style that really does it for me. I don't mind I like pixel art, but I don't really like the old school pixel art where it looks like it played on those systems. I prefer a more modern take on pixel art where it still looks really good, just made out of bigger pixels so that you can like clearly see it's pixel art, but it still looks modern. I prefer that look. And then on top of it, the gameplay is just kind of, it's alright. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not like something that blew me away. Nothing was crazy good about it. And the only thing that was kind of funny was the motorcycle thing that would crash the game, but it was still kind of fun to use, where you could just drive around on a motorcycle using a cheat code. That was pretty funny. Star Wars Racer going in the bozo pile. And the only reason it's going in there is because I don't want to piss people off by putting it down in a lower tier, because apparently there's a lot of love for that game, and I did not enjoy that, but I don't like any gravity racers, so that makes sense. Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet is a game I would say is a B tier. It's fun. It's a fairly unique approach to the Metroidvania genre, that being more of a shoot 'em up Metroidvania, and I enjoyed that a lot. I think I had a lot of fun with Swift and a couple of other guys that we found on TA doing the 4-player achievements. That was pretty good. How dare me what? I'm assuming you're talking about Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet. B tier's perfectly fine, isn't it? Would you not put that in B tier yourself, Swift? Anyway, I think it's a really good time. But it's not as great as like these games up here. It's just kind of a decent time. And I'm struggling to remember some of it because it's been a while and I'm not good at remembering games. But Pod Racer and Bozo. Yeah, I didn't like it. I knew I'd piss somebody off putting it in the Bozo pile. I didn't like it. I just threw it. I threw it in there because I did it only for the points in our G-Task team. But otherwise, I don't think I would have played that game. And I definitely didn't enjoy it. Duke Nukem 3D is a surprising C tier. I thought I would like this game a lot more because I like older shooters, but I had never properly played Duke Nukem 3D. And it surprisingly didn't do it for me like old school Doom or a lot of other games from that time period, like Quake, stuff like that. Like Duke Nukem just really wasn't the one, didn't hit it for me. But it's still good. Like it's perfect. It's still a good game. It's just not something that blew me away or really drew me in to want to keep playing like the other older shooters I liked. But on the bright side, I did get to play it with Swift in co-op, weirdly enough. And maybe the co-op took away from it. That's totally possible that actually playing it in co-op made it worse, but we had a good time, you know. And then of course the multiplayer boost only took like an hour to get all 500 kills, so that wasn't too bad. Human Fall Flat is a game that could literally be in every single one of these tiers depending on how you experience it. But for me, it would be in C tier. I'll just put it in the middle because it really does fit any one of these, depending on if you have people to play it with or not. And I didn't for most of it, so it was kind of like a boring experience and frustrating to play it alone and just go for the achievements. But if you actually have people to group up with, and every once in a while I did, that would easily bring it up to like an A tier game. It's a ton of fun when you actually have people that are invested and just having a good time laughing at the stupidity of the game. Like Human Fall Flat could be in any one of these ratings because of that. So, no, I would not say it falls a bit flat, Swift. Come on. Minecraft Story Mode, easy S tier. Easy S tier. No, I'm joking. You know, probably C tier. It's one of the worst. S tier. Yeah. You know what? Let's keep it there. No, I'm joking. Definitely a C tier game. It's one of the worst Telltale games, but that's not saying a lot because I think that all Telltale games are good. Like I've enjoyed every single Telltale game I've played. I've not experienced a bad one. And the first 4 episodes of Minecraft Story Mode are kind of meh, but I think that the Adventure Pass that adds like 3 more episodes and then you have like this different story arc for 5 through 8 are actually really fun because they actually do what they should have done the first time and take like well-known community parts of Minecraft and turn it into a story within it. Like the whole first taking the YouTubers from that are popular on obviously YouTube. Fuck sakes, why would I even say that? Words are difficult for me. I have ADHD, so I'm just all over the fucking place. But you know, taking things that are popular, like the last episode, not to spoil anything, I won't talk about the actual story in it, but you know, they take the mini games aspect of that made it super popular on PC servers, and they flip that around and turn it into a story for the game, which is really good. I think that stuff was really cool when they were taking things from actual Minecraft and basing a story around it. I don't think that the first 4 episodes were all that. Like they're all right, but they're not great. I think that the last 4 episodes are much better, and if it had been focused on that the whole time, it would probably be a B tier. Skatebird D. That is a frustrating experience. It's a lot like Human Fall Flat in the way that the controls suck on purpose, but because you're on a skateboard, it's just so much more frustrating to do everything. Luckily, there's cheat codes you can enter that make things much more manageable. Like, I don't think that I could have completed this game if I had to do it 100% legit, because I probably would have raged and broke a controller, and that would have been an easy F tier alongside Super Time Force. But the fact that it had that made it much more manageable, and at times I had fun. I thought the art style was cute. I liked the level design for the most part. Some of them were kind of annoying, but I just think that the actual controls suck, and the fact that they suck on purpose doesn't excuse the fact that they suck. They still just aren't fun to play with. So for that reason, I give that a D tier. Batman the Telltale series, A tier. Batman is fucking fantastic. Like, I would say most Telltale games probably fall under the A tier for me, but Batman is such a banger. I really need to play The Enemy Within because I want to experience that after experiencing. I've done Batman, this one, the original Batman Telltale, fucking 3 times now, and I still haven't experienced The Enemy Within once, which is stupid. It's so good, dude. Just the whole story between well, the Children of Arkham, or I believe that's what they're called. It's such an interesting story that I have never seen taken in any other Batman media before. Like the different enemies were so different than you'd expect from any other. And Batman himself, I don't know who played him as the voice actor. I don't recall, but he did such a good, believable job with Batman. And they even made the choices like make sense for Batman, which is tough to do when Batman's such a very specific character. Yet the choices he makes do make sense for him. Like you can't go out of your way to. You haven't missed too much. You've only missed a little bit. I'm still, well, I guess I am like probably a little more than halfway through the list, but there's still a lot of it to go. Yeah, I want to play that this year for sure, and I might even pick up the original on PlayStation again, just because I believe you can carry your save over, and then like choices that you made in the original will be referenced in The Enemy Within. So I might pick up like the Batman Telltale and then The Enemy Within on PlayStation 4 and play both of those and get the platinums as well. And Battle Block Theater. We're finally throwing another one in S tier. That is my favorite Xbox Live Arcade game of all time. It is an incredibly funny and enjoyable experience. It's possible to play in co-op and solo, and you have to do both for the achievement list because you have to beat it on solo and co-op on normal difficulty, and then solo and co-op on insane difficulty. And it's just a pleasure throughout, except for insane difficulty is very fucking annoying. Yeah, exactly. It's one of the best. I absolutely love Battle Block Theater, though. I think it is amazing. There's just so much humor in it, and it hits so hard. Like, it's still funny all these years later. Every single time I play through the game, I listen to the cutscenes because they're just so stupid that it's hard not to laugh at the game. Like, it's genuinely fantastic. And I wish that they would do a remaster on this, because they've now, with Alien Hominid HD just having released recently, they have basically remastered every single one of their games except for Battle Block Theater. So this needs a release on modern systems. The other thing is that Battle Block Theater is one of my proudest completions this year because, like I said, insane difficulty is so difficult. It was so frustrating. Some of those levels are just... maybe not difficult is the right term, but definitely frustrating, where you would just lose a lot of time because you'd have some big setup that you'd have to do at the beginning of a level, and then you die towards the end of the level and have to redo that setup over and over again. You'd wind up losing like 20 seconds to a minute at the beginning of certain levels, just redoing the same setup over and over again so that you can get to the same point that you kept dying at, just to get one more chance to try at it and figure out what you're doing wrong, and then you have to redo that whole process again if you fuck it up. That's frustrating. But other than that, on normal difficulty and in co-op, it is so much fun. Bloody Good Time was a bozo pile. I did this one with Swift, but we only did it because it was worth bonus points that month in the BCM contest. Other than that, I wouldn't have done it. It's just kind of a whatever game. I played it on PC and it's fun enough, but I wouldn't consider like the achievement list to be fun whatsoever, and we really didn't experience the achievement list the way we should have because we didn't do it legitimately. We just got together since nobody else plays the game and boosted everything. But when I did play it on PC a long time ago, I would have thrown it in like a C tier as just being a fun game. But yeah, I think that's accurate. Just throw it in the bozo pile and get over. Game of Thrones, B tier. We got a Telltale game in A, B, and C. Game of Thrones is one of the more hated on ones. Like, I've heard a lot of people say that it's just boring and nothing happens. I disagree. I really enjoy Game of Thrones, the Telltale series. In fact, it was my first introduction to the Game of Thrones series as a whole. I had never watched it prior to playing the game the first time a few years ago. Yeah, I'd agree that it's definitely underrated because so many people hate the game, and I don't think it's deserving of that hatred. In the fact that it goes in so many interesting ways, and the choices feel like they matter a little bit more because it's Game of Thrones. So, making a certain choice will see another character killed off. So it's really interesting to see how your story can develop, especially towards the end. Is since they never made the sequel or anything, the choices that you make actually really matter in the last episode. It can drastically change where the story goes. And I think that's pretty cool. And I'd say that this also had one of the most large impacts on me this year, because right after playing this, I felt so compelled to go back and actually watch the entire TV show again, just because I enjoyed the game so much, and I wound up spending most of July just watching the game or watching the show again, and that was such a good experience too. Outside of I had never finished the show when I watched it originally, and I finally finished it. Wolf, I see what everybody says about the ending now. I won't spoil it, but it's fucking terrible. You can't see any games. What are the two S's? Fallout New Vegas and BattleBlock Theater so far. All right. Next up, we got Deep Black Episode 1. Bozo. Not 4. That's not Fallout 4. Come on, Swift. Fallout 4 is a completely different game that I've never played before. Now we get to talk about something decent. Fable 2. See, people are going to not like that I did that because there's so much nostalgia for Fable 2 that they would say S or A. But realistically, going back to Fable 2, it's very much just kind of it's a good game, but it's not as amazing as it was when it came out. And it's kind of a game that, if you look at it from the scope of when it came out, it's great. But when you play it now, it's just it's a decent game, but it leaves a lot to be desired. It's one of the more ugly games. RCR. Yeah. It's definitely good that you missed that. I mean, it's in the bozo pile, which just means I did it for points. I didn't actually, the bozo pile is mostly games that I just kind of feel indifferent about, that I did for points. And it was just a quick completion. So I didn't, trash it. But I would say I didn't enjoy it that much, so the bozo pile is probably the right spot for me anyway with that. But yeah, with Fable 2, I think that it's a good game. It's just, it doesn't hold up as well as you'd hope. Crackdown 3, specifically Wrecking Zone. It doesn't say it on here. It just says Crackdown 3, but I did the campaign last year. So this is just Wrecking Zone, which is the multiplayer achievement list that's separate. And I would just put that in the bozo pile because we didn't get to play it legit. There was nobody playing the game anymore. So we had to get a group together to boost it since it requires 6 people to start a match. So it's just kind of whatever. Fable 3. Real torn between C and D, but I'll throw it in C. It's a huge step down, in my opinion, from Fable 2, which I don't think either particularly holds up well, but I would say that Fable 2 is definitely more enjoyable. Fable 3's, just everything about it wanted to feel modern at the time, and it makes it feel so much more outdated because it doesn't have a menu system. That was at the time that everybody wanted to do away with menus in exchange for some sort of in-game system where you could go and actually select weapons manually and shit like that. And it just makes everything take so much longer and feel more tedious. The fact that there's no menu and you click the start button and you go to a hub where you then have to go to different rooms to change your outfit and to get your different weapons equipped and to go to the treasury to add money to that. Just let me do all that from a menu in 2 seconds instead of making me waste 2 or 3 minutes going back and forth between rooms. That sucked. That was enough for me to throw it in C tier. But then the fact that they also got rid of the HUD completely, so you didn't get a visible health bar. Your screen would just change to like red or whatever, or gray when you were taking damage, and it would like blink. And that's just dumb. Just let me have a health bar like Fable 2, so I can actually see what kind of health I'm working with. That was so annoying. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. I would throw that in B tier with the caveat that DLC is definitely D tier. But the base game takes up more time, and I would say that the base game itself is a lot of fun. Stranger of Paradise is... I don't know. I feel like by saying that like one part of it's in D and one's in B, I kind of got to throw it in C, actually. Thinking about it more. It's like, that makes more sense. Because the DLC sucks. It was awful completing all of those, but the actual like base game was great. I had a lot of fun playing through Stranger of Paradise. I did it with a friend, luckily. I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much solo because I'm not really a Final Fantasy guy, but playing through it with a friend was a lot of fun. And he's super into it, so he was kind of explaining things to me, and I was learning a bit about the universe while playing through the game because I had never played a Final Fantasy game before. So that was pretty cool. Starfield, a game that everybody wants to hate on and for some reason is universally accepted as a terrible game, is in my S rank because I fucking loved it. I had such a good time with it, and it's one of those very few games that sucked me in, just like New Vegas, where I didn't want to stop playing it. I wound up putting 107 hours in like 2 weeks. I had such a fantastic time with the game. So, as much as everybody wants to tell me that the game's bad on the internet, I don't give a shit. I had a good time. I'm not going to let people's opinions sway mine. For me, Starfield is not quite the game of the year, and you'll see why in a little bit, but I would say that it's definitely second place for me as far as my like game of the year pick for games that came out this year. I would say that it's definitely like, I would put it in between Fallout New Vegas and Battle Block Theater though. I don't think it's quite as good as New Vegas. I think New Vegas is definitely a little better. Yeah, a lot of people a lot of people say that it's meh or boring, or some people straight up say it's just bad. But I had a great time. I fell in love. I got addicted to it, and I didn't want to stop playing it. So that's now GT7, Gran Turismo 7. This is the beginning. Okay, so this is September, and this is the beginning of me getting back into like PlayStation trophy hunting, where all of this stuff on the board prior is all on Xbox because I was really hard into the Xbox achievement hunting, and I have been since 2013. But I finally got back into trophy hunting, and I just started out by earning that last achievement that I put off for a year in Gran Turismo 7. And I'm going to throw Gran Turismo 7 in C tier. I didn't mean to put it in D tier. Do not take that as a D tier. I would say C tier. I'm not crazy about Gran Turismo. I was hoping I would like it more, but it's just a super boring and tedious platinum that takes super long. You have to invest way more time than you want to, and everything's just such a grind. Like money, you got to grind the same track over and over and over again to earn enough money to be able to buy one of the legendary cars. And you have to buy all 3 legendary cars, which you have to wait for a rotating shop to actually have the legendary cars in order to be able to buy them. And then you have to have enough money to buy them. And then that's not even the worst part, because the worst part is easily the online sport mode grind, where you have to complete 50 races in sport mode, which is not boostable, and you cannot change the settings. So you're stuck doing like 4 or 5 lap races that take 15 minutes. And then you have to wait for the next race to start, because it's not just search and find people. You have to sign up for races at specific times. It's so tedious, and you lose so much time. It wound up taking me like an extra at least 18 hours just for the sport mode trophy. And that's the reason I put it off for a year. I hated that mode. It was so boring. Remember Me. Now this is the only game that I've actually done a video on earning the platinum experience. So it shouldn't surprise you that it is in the A tier. I loved this, and I won't say a lot about it, but if you want to see my thoughts and you haven't watched the video already, highly recommend it. I think, not to toot my own horn here, but I think I actually did a good job with that video. So I think that it is worth just watching the video. And the next game, Chernobylite, C tier, was supposed to be my second video, and I got burnt out on making the video because it was taking so long, and I don't feel that passionately about the game, especially anymore. I felt more passionately about it before I played it again for the Platinum on PlayStation. I had done it on Xbox the year prior, and I had a lot of fun with it that time, but this time when I played it, I ran into so many more bugs and glitches that it was just a frustrating experience, especially right towards the end. Everything just kept breaking on me, and so I wound up just getting annoyed with the game. I didn't even celebrate when the platinum popped like I did with Remember Me. I was just kind of like, oh, finally, it's over. I'm so glad that's done. And it's a shame because it's still a decent game, even with the issues. It's just, at that point, I wasn't expecting the issues like because I had played it on Xbox already and didn't run into those, that it just kind of soured the whole experience of Chernobylite. And I would say that so far, I only have 15 platinums on PlayStation so far. I would say Gran Turismo 7 is the worst, followed by Chernobylite for my experience. Now, Spider-Man 2, boom. That is my game of the year. I understand why Baldur's Gate 3 won. I'm not going to argue that it shouldn't have. I'm just saying my personal experience, Spider-Man 2 was fucking incredible. It was everything I wanted out of a sequel for Spider-Man 1. And I think that in a very rare instance, it actually wound up better than the first game, in my opinion. At least from the gameplay perspective. I think that the story hits a little harder in the first game still. But Spider-Man 2's gameplay is so fucking good. It's insane. All the systems that they did to change things up just work so well. And it's just such a... I don't even know how to describe it other than it just feels amazing. Like, there's nothing about the game that feels bad. The entire experience is good from start to finish. Earning the platinum, it's one of those very few games that I'd say, even if you're not an achievement or trophy hunter, deserves to be platinumed because it was just fucking incredible. And nothing felt tedious or boring or unnecessary. Even cleaning up all the extra objectives on the map felt rewarding and fun, and there wasn't so many that it felt like a big task. Like the first game's crimes, having to do 20 random crimes in every zone wasn't fun, so I could see why somebody wouldn't bother with that one. But this game, I've seen people that aren't into trophy hunting complete Spider-Man 2 and talk about the platinum experience just because it's that good of a platinum experience. I don't think there's any other game that I've played this year that felt more cohesive as a platinum experience. Like, it makes more sense to platinum it than it doesn't. Oh, Remnant 2, huh? that one's a cool game. I need to check that out. I still haven't played the first one. I've been meaning to get around to Remnant from the Ashes for a while now. I own it on Xbox with like all the DLC, but just haven't gotten around to it yet. But yeah, Spider-Man 2 is great. Yeah, not a single award for Spider-Man. It kind of sucks, but I'm not that surprised. Again, it's just kind of like Baldur's Gate 3. I understand why it won so many awards. It was a really good game. Even if it's not something that's personally for me, I can respect what it did. And therefore, like, I'm not mad at it. I think it made sense as the game of the year. RoboCop Rogue City, A tier. This is the one that Lucas said that he's surprised that he thought that this was going to be my game of the year. RoboCop is a fantastic game. It is so much fun. It is absolutely worth playing. I wouldn't put it up in the same tier as anything in the S tier for me. I think that it is a really good game, but it does have some slight issues. It's a bit glitchy, and that's because it's a lower budget game. It isn't a full AAA game. It is a AA game with a team that's got budget limitations, but have a lot of passion for these IPs and therefore put a lot of work into them and making them feel like they should from the movies. Like, I haven't played the Terminator Resistance game yet, but I've heard that it's fucking incredible as well. And so I bought the collector's edition for like $50 that comes with a comic book that's in a hardcover and everything like that, just because I wanted, after experiencing this game and it how good and how much passion went into it, I want to give that other Terminator game a chance too. So I need to get around to that. But RoboCop is definitely like one of the most satisfying FPS games I've played. Like, I'd say it's a more satisfying game from an FPS standpoint than either Fallout New Vegas or Starfield. But obviously, Fallout and Starfield have more going for it in other categories, so you can't really, it's not really a fair comparison. Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition, S tier. One of my favorite, that's my favorite Metroidvania of all time. It's right up there. I'd say the only game that would give it a run for its money that I've played is SteamWorld Dig 2, but Guacamelee 2 is fucking amazing. It's the game that introduced me to the Metroidvania genre, so it's totally possible that there's a bit of bias there, but I don't care if there's bias there. It's fucking great, and this is my list, so I'm throwing it on S tier. It is just incredible. It's funny. The art design is amazing. The music is amazing. The gameplay is so unique and done so well that it feels so responsive and fun to play. Like, between the platforming challenges that are actually challenging, like the game has some tough platforming, and the combat, which feels super rewarding, and there's so many different ways to play it with different combinations of moves that you can string together. It's just super fun. Guacamelee 2, A tier. Right below it. I don't think that Guacamelee 2 is quite as enjoyable as the first game for me, and I think that comes down to the fact that, again, it's just Guacamelee 1 was the first Metroidvania I played, and so I feel like I just kind of have a bit of a bias towards it because it introduced me to the genre. But I also think that Guacamelee 2 is just a more frustrating game because it is a much harder game in my opinion. Having played them both back to back now, I can confidently say that Guacamelee 2 is harder than the first game. There are many more moments that actually frustrated me and pissed me off in the second game. And then I'd also say that unlike the first game, I felt that the second game would drop my controls every so often, where I'd put I'd press a button and it just wouldn't do anything, and I would die because of it. And it wasn't often that it would happen, but it was enough that it was noticeable and annoyed me. So I'd say that it's still a really good sequel, but I don't think it's quite as good as the first game. With Guacamelee 1 and 2 out of the way, MX vs. ATV Supercross Encore. Now, oh no, my monster's empty. But I have Supercross down here from the last generation, and like I explained earlier when I rated it, that the PS4 and Xbox One versions of the game, Supercross Encore, did get some improvements. Like, all of the DLC content was added to the base game, which means you can now access these really short tracks, which made the boosting nowhere near as tedious. And on top of that, all 12 players could actually move in the multiplayer match without it crashing the game, which is a huge plus. So that was pretty nice. Overall, the career mode is the exact same. There is no difference outside of the fact that the frame rate doesn't drop as often, but the career mode is fun. Both vehicles, the MX and the ATV, both work well enough. So I'd say that it's a B tier. It's definitely more enjoyable than the original, and I'd say it's a bit more enjoyable than All Out, just because All Out has some more frustrating stuff. Ugh. Working myself out of breath here. Damn. 13. I would put 13 in the C tier. It is a very perfectly fine FPS game with a lot of bugginess, but also is pretty fun. It's a remake of a PS2 game, so because it's remade, it still feels a bit more modern, but there's definitely, like, the objectives are very PS2-ish. And luckily the stealth doesn't feel like that old, at least. But there's a lot of bugs with the game. Even after patches and fixes, there's still stuff that's Like randomly you'll lose, an item will just disappear or something like that, or an objective won't be able to complete and you'll have to restart the checkpoint to get it to work again. But other than that, it usually works. It's a lot of fun. I think the weapon roster is really good. There's a lot of different weapons that are fun to play with. And the boss fights are kind of weird because they're just more there's just like bullet sponge people. Like, it doesn't make any sense why this guy can take 40 shots that another guy can't, but they play well enough. So it's just a fine C tier FPS game with some stealth mechanics. And the main reason I did it is because I wanted 13 to be my 13th platinum. That was basically the whole reasoning behind choosing that game. Next up would be MX versus ATV Legends. That's D tier. As an overall game, I would put this at the top of D tier because I enjoyed it more than any of the other games in D tier. But as an overall game, the only part that's any good is the MX racing. MX is a lot of fun. The ATVs suck. They changed the physics so they just feel impossible to control. They're not fun, and it's really difficult to win anything with them. The UTVs or UTXs, whatever they call them, those also suck. They're super annoying. They have really bad physics that make them bounce all over the place, so they feel impossible to control as well. The only thing that's any good is the fact that the MX bikes actually control better. Like, they did a lot of work in making those feel better, but the rest of the stuff that they changed is worse. And therefore, I feel like D tier is perfectly fine for it. The achievement list for the game is nice, at least. They finally removed that, play with 12 people, play with 16 people that the last few entries have had, where you had to win an online match with that many players. There's finally none of that. The only online achievement is, or trophy in this case, because this one was on PlayStation as well, was for playing 25 matches. You didn't have to win any of them, so I did them legit. It's one of those few multiplayer games that there were people playing it because it was on sale, so I just started up and searched for matches and was able to just play through 25 matches that way. So that was fine. And finally, WRC Generations, which I would say was the best racing game I've played this year. Definitely, without a doubt. WRC Generations was a great game that's totally, I would say, revived my interest in rally games as a whole. Like, I had tried Sebastian Loeb's Rally Evo and V Rally 4, and I didn't enjoy either of those, so I thought I just didn't like rally video games, but I couldn't be more wrong. Generations was a ton of fun up until the final grind, which is the only reason why it's not, well, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if I would say it would have made it to S without that grind, but that grind definitely held it back from having a chance at S. But the in-game content itself is a lot of fun doing the career mode. I wish it was a little bit longer in the career mode so that it would have sustained that grind a little better. Because the final grind, after I had finished everything else, I was only level 77. And the final trophy I needed was to get to level 150, which required me to just race the same track over and over again for 13 hours until I finally hit that level. And obviously I took that in breaks where I only did like an hour here, an hour there kind of thing. I didn't sit there and do 13 hours in a row, but I'd still say that soured it a little bit, but not enough to drop it down to B. I think that it's certainly the best racing game I played this year. I hope that satisfies Wellington if he was looking for a racing game recommendation, and he hasn't played Generations yet. I don't know. He might have already done that, in which case that recommendation doesn't mean anything to him. But with that being said, that is my whole list of every game I've completed this year. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with the results. I think that this board looks pretty accurate. I've done a lot of mid games. If it's showing me anything, it's that I really need to focus on playing more games that I think would be deserving of A and S, because there's just so many C tier games. And that's fine though. I think that C tier games are good for breaking up the if you only ever play games that are good, I don't think you'll have an appreciation for how good they are. You need those games that aren't as good in order to give you like that, holy shit, this game is amazing. because you need that balance. If you're just playing amazing game after amazing game, it'll eventually become numb to you. So having those bad experiences like Feudal Alloy is what makes Spider-Man 2 so amazing. Hopefully that makes sense anyway. But definitely I'd say my number one favorite this year is, and the reason I kept it here in this first spot, Fallout New Vegas. Like, it's technically not my game of the year because it didn't come out this year, but it's certainly my completion of the year. I had the most fun with this game. And if it wasn't for the fact that it's apparently a buggy mess to try to complete fully on PlayStation 3, I would do it again. But the fact that it's got a lot of issues on PS3 kind of drives me away from that. Maybe one day they'll remaster it and I'll go for the plat or complete it on the new on Xbox Series, whatever the fuck they're on in the future. But I think Fallout's definitely the best, and then the worst game by far was Super Time Force. No other game compares to how bad that was for me this year. That game was miserable. And I also need to do something similar to SpongeBob Week like I did this year. I want to do something similar to that next year for sure too, because I had a lot of fun with SpongeBob Week. Even if 2 of the games made the F tier, I still think that it's just a fun challenge to try to complete that many of the same game in a week, and especially one that is easy enough like that. Like, it's not a frustrating experience. It's just it's sort of meant a challenge that the only reason it's a challenge is because I'm trying to squeeze it in that time frame. But otherwise, it's like these are all easy enough games. You're not going to struggle to complete any of them. But putting them all together in a short time period is what makes it a challenge. I need to find another list that seems applicable for that. But overall, I'm pretty happy with my year's completions. So, finally, I would say my goals for next year, I want to earn at least 10 completions on Xbox, and I want to focus mostly on 360 for those completions. I'll probably do a couple of Xbox One games and Xbox Series games, but I definitely want to focus on 360 stuff. And then this year I also want to focus on PlayStation more, so my goal for Platinums is 20, and that'll be spread across multiple systems because I got a lot of games on PS3, 4, 5, so it's like I'm not really going to limit myself to one system, though I would like to try to get a few of the PS3 games out of the way this year just because you don't know how long those PS3 and Xbox 360 servers are going to stay up. Do my randoms? I don't know. It depends on the list I get. I mean, right now I'm pretty tempted to do the Lollipop Chainsaw, which was my randomly drawn game for January in the BCMX. So if I might do Lollipop Chainsaw, but it depends on what I'm drawing in the future. You know, I obviously don't want to. I don't want to force myself to have to do something. Like, that's kind of my big thing, and the reason I stepped away from running the contest is because I'm tired of making achievement hunting and trophy hunting about contests and having to do specific things. I just want to play something when I feel like playing it, and that's kind of why I wanted to step away from stuff like that. So I'll probably do Lollipop Chainsaw just because it's something that's interested me, and I still have it wrapped. Like, I haven't opened the plastic seal yet, so having a reason to finally get into that game would be nice. So I might go ahead and do that one, but it'll all depend on what's drawn in the future as to if I continue doing randoms or if I just kind of peter off and do my own thing. And again, I want to focus more on PlayStation this year because I own these systems, and I've owned so many games for them, but I almost, up until this year, I've barely put any time into them. Yeah, because I feel like a crazy talk. Yeah, that I know it sounds crazy, but that's where I'm at now. I want to do things because I want to, not because I feel I need to. And that's it's a double-edged sword, right? Because when you have contests, you feel motivated to do things and get specific things done at a certain time because it works for a bonus or because it was randomly selected for you. It gives you that motivation to do it, but at the same time, you don't feel like you're ever putting time into the games that you actually want to play because you feel limited by the amount of time that you have available, stuff like that. Like, you can't fit a 100-hour game into a monthly bonus most months. Like, most people don't have the free time for that. So you wind up throwing these 100-hour games on the backlist, and you never play them because you're busy focusing on a game that you can complete that's only 10 hours, but it plays like ass, and you don't want to. But, it's more manageable within a month. So you're doing a couple of 10-hour games, maybe a 20, a 30, that you don't really feel passionately about, instead of these 100-hour games that everybody loves. Like, I still haven't played Yakuza 0, that if Play Ultimate is watching, I know he'll scream Yakuza in the chat, but I don't think he's here. But yeah, I want to play Yakuza 0 this year, and I would have never made time for that had I stayed focused on contests. So the goal next year is to not focus on contests, and to instead play games that I want to play, that I've been putting off. Maybe even games that aren't possible to complete anymore, games with discontinueds that have been on my tag, or unobtainables. Put some time into those games that I wouldn't have, because that contest only counts games that you complete. So if they're not possible to complete, I wasn't getting points, so I wouldn't bother playing them. Yeah, exactly. But I do wanna play Yakuza 0 this year, and I know that that's an insane, taking 150 hours, 7 out of 10 difficulty on PSN profiles. I know it's gonna be tough, but I want to try, because I think that game's gonna be a lot of fun. Other than that, I'd say that the 20 platinums, I want to try to obtain that, and my expert goal is I do have an expert goal as well, where it's like I want to get at least 15 on Xbox and 30 on PlayStation, but my min goal is 10 on Xbox, 20 on PlayStation. I have some games in mind, but I don't want to put too many on the board and limit myself. So I'll just say that I definitely want to play Yakuza 0 this year, and I want to continue enjoying Deep Rock Galactic, but I don't see that completion happening. It's just too long, and I don't think I'll enjoy it for 500 hours, because I'm at the point now where I'm still enjoying it, but I can definitely feel that I'm starting to come down off of that high, and I'm at like 50 some hours right now. So 400 to 500 hours, realistically, that's not going to be something I finish. Even if I enjoy it, it's not something that I'm going to enjoy long enough to stick through that grind. And then obviously me and Swift are going to be starting the year off with a good ass completion with Saints Row 2. I wanted to try to fit that in this year, because that would have been probably an A tier with how awful this multiplayer grind is. But now we're going to be starting off next year with it, because we couldn't finish the fucking grind. It's taken so much longer than we thought it would. That's been miserable. So I guess I'll be starting next year on. Hopefully we'll be able to finish it on the 1st. And I'll be clocking in a lot of points, because it's a 2008 game that's already worth 1,000 points. So then the bonus for January, even though I don't want to focus on the contest, the bonus points for January will be kind of nice. We did actually try. We have over 30 hours in the multiplayer in just in-game time. That's not including loading screens or anything like that. And we've been going at it for a week and a half. We originally made a friend named Kevin, but that dude hasn't been around since he showed up for 2 days, and then he stopped coming around. Unfortunately, some of the guys that mess up our boosting haven't stopped showing up, though. I don't know about days of 11 hours of grinding. I don't think we've done 11 hours outside of maybe when we were playing co-op. We might have done that long. Yeah, I know. Already calculating points, and I don't want to focus on the contest. But that's exactly why I'm going to do PlayStation stuff. Because you guys can't make me. You can't score it, because it's not open to PlayStation. So I can't focus on the contest if I'm playing on PlayStation. I do not have a spreadsheet. I'll have you know. I have not looked at anything like that. Oh, man. Can't believe that I bought a PlayStation 3 back in August, and I've still only done one game on it, and that was Remember Me. I have a stack of 30 games now that I have to play on my PlayStation 3. I really got to get around to actually using this thing. It's right next to me, but I just never turn it on. I'm always playing something on my PlayStation 5. So I want to make an effort to try to play more PS3 stuff. especially Infamous. I own those games, and those are still possible to plat, so I'd like to do those. And then maybe MX versus ATV Alive, since I seem to love those games, even though I rate them in the C and B tier. I still really enjoy them. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, I guess at this point, if anybody wants to say good, I don't know about goodbye, but happy retirement is probably the more accurate term, since I'm no longer running the BCM. And this is probably the time to do it, because it seems like I'm going to be winding down here in a second. We've got this list, and I don't know what else to talk about. So it's been a lot of fun ranking all these games, though. I enjoyed the conversations, talking about how interesting some of these games are and how bad some of them were. There's quite a few people that hung out tonight, which is more than usual. I'll say that much. So that's been a lot of fun. Yep, the Platty Daddy, but spell it with 2 T's, motherfucker. It's not 2 P or not 2 D's. It's 2 T's. Platty, and then it's Daddy with 3 D's. And I guess I'll see you tomorrow, Swift, when we get back to the Saints Row 2 grind. I want to pull up my other screen, but if I do it, it's just gonna W stream and W list, dude. that was from CJ. Thanks, man. I thought that was from eohjay, and I was like, that sounds like that doesn't sound like anything he'd say. He doesn't use the term W, and then it's like, oh, okay, that makes way more sense. Yeah, thanks, man. That means a lot. I'm glad you stopped by. I think you're the only one from Threads that came by, so that was really cool. And then, of course, thanks Swift, thanks Cornelius, or eohjay, as he's actually known. I'm not sure who Frederick Bernard is, but thank you for stopping by too. I think that might be Mental Night. I can't tell though. And then I know Echo was here earlier, Wellington, Lucas, and Sir Polygon were all in here hanging out. So that, and Ace, Scaro, like there's quite a few of you guys stopped by, and that means a lot to me. Well, yeah, that's true. That's also obvious from his profile picture, and the fact that he was on and the fact that he was on stream yesterday on his webcam. Yeah, I don't think I made that mistake. I'll be honest. Oh, but it was funny watching everybody be like, "Oh, eohjay is actually handsome. What the hell?" And I was just like, he's like, "Oh, I'm always so shy. I can't show my face. I don't want to say anything." I don't know what MK means. Unless you're talking about Mortal Kombat, I've never heard anything called MK before. It makes you look homeless. Yeah, that's fair, man. To be fair, I think your BCMX shirt kind of flexes on everybody else, so I don't know about that. I guess I could see Jim Halpert. I don't know about that one. That one's a bit of a stretch to me. But he's definitely... I don't want to say anything else. Anyway, thank you guys for stopping by. It's been a blast running the contest these last few years, so it means a lot that people came and hung out. And obviously, I'm still going to be around in the Discord, so it's not like I'm disappearing completely. It's just me stepping down and letting them take charge. So, with that, I'm going to wish y'all a farewell. Oh, now you guys can see me, and there's at least 4 of me. Maybe, I guess you can see kind of 5 of me. Oh, don't you lie. You've used that phrase in Call of Duty before. But anyway, I appreciate you guys for hanging out. I'm I think I'm going to end the stream here because I don't have anything else to say, and we finished my thing. Maybe one last look. There we go. We got the whole tier list. And with that, thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.